A very good morning to you, Grenada and the rest of the world. Yes, he got caught with his pants down this morning. Yeah, something like that. Terribly sorry about being, let's see here, about 7 minutes late. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Terribly sorry. Anyhow, very good morning, my dear friends. Nice of you to join us on this, the 6th day of January. And our first edition of Sundays with George Grant in 2019. Pilgrims, all is well here, and I hope with you as well. And looking forward to a really good program this morning. I only have one person coming in here, and that person is Lisa Taylor. You'll find out in just a wee bit, but that's going to be towards the end of the program, maybe at about... I think we've agreed to do it at 11:30 this morning. But we do have a number of segments which I recorded over the past couple of days, and I think you're going to be very interested. First of all, before we get into today's rundown, just let me brief you. You know that everything's going well these days with our stream, but just want to remind you that in the event that you have any hassles on Facebook or on the video portion of GrenadaBroadcast.com, please feel free to join us on Radio Janar, TuneIn, or Radio Garden. And of course, later on this afternoon, after we're through with the program, we're going to stick it up there on YouTube. We'll also be up on Facebook. So you got no excuses, none whatsoever. All right? And for those of you who are not that familiar with the website, right at the top of the rundown, on the home page there, you'll see the names of the places, the platforms where you can hear us. I just mentioned to you. And they all have links. So all you need to do is click on the link which you decide to listen to, and you'll get us loud and clear. Okay? Now, time to get into the rundown. And we'll start this morning, as always, with the buzz. I do have a reading for you from the Holy Scriptures. And yeah, we do have little Angel back with us this week. So stick around for that. It's coming your way after our first little break this morning. As far as editorials are concerned, got two for you. The Grenada Advocate is captioned, "A holistic approach is necessary." What's that about? Well, you're not going to have to wait too much longer. You'll find that out in just a wee bit. Okay? Then, the New Today says that another state-run entity is now the subject of alleged wrongdoing. Yaman. Yeah. Those are your two editorials this morning. Now, we're not going to do features per se this morning. We're not going to do interviews per se. What we do have for you are a couple of features. The first one is captioned "Voices to be Reckoned with." You've been hearing some of these voices towards the end of 2018. And I think it's important that you keep following those voices early into the new year and throughout the year. The first one you're going to hear is I'm not reading them in the order in which they're going to be played. I think the first one I'm going to play is Mr. Lester Andall, who is the president of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. You know, we keep hearing about all the economic development that's taking place in Grenada and how crucial the business community is to that development? Well, I asked not just Mr. Andall, but I asked all of these people, the four names that you're about to hear. I asked them, if I provided you with a platform, some airtime, to start the new year, speaking to the people of this country, especially about your field of endeavor, you know, could you have a tete-a-tete, if you will, with the Grenadian people? And they all agreed. They all agreed. And so, in the case of Mr. Andall, you're going to hear him talk about his plans for the business community in the coming year, and you know, things that we ought to be doing and probably not doing. So that's going to be the first segment you get this morning. Then, there's a gentleman who's been keeping a very close eye on developments here in Grenada, and this gentleman is never at a loss for words. His name is Mr. William Joseph. He's done a lot of writing over the past year. You've seen his articles published on my site. You've seen them published on other websites. You've seen them published in newspapers. So Willie is going to take an overall look at things Grenadian, where we ought to be going, you know, what paradigm shifts we ought to be making. Yeah? So Willie's going to be the second person that you hear from this morning. The third person you're going to hear from is Mr. Lydon Lewis, who is the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers. And Mr. Lewis will obviously be talking about the industrial relations, I guess you could call it that, industrial impasse we've been having here. And, you know, that's one you're going to have to keep a close eye on. You're really going to have to keep a close eye on that. They've got some issues. They've got some issues, okay? So, Lydon, you may at some point say, excuse me, well, he's a little bit tight-lipped. Maybe. But since the negotiations are going to resume this week, he has to be cautious about what he's saying on air. So hence the reason he may be a little bit tight-lipped. But I do urge you to keep a close eye on this one, starting this coming week, well, this week. The final one you're going to hear, the final piece, saved it for last. This gentleman has been to some extent involved in the industrial impasse, and I'm referring to none other than Bishop Clyde Harvey. He's the Bishop of St. George. You might remember just a few weeks ago, he actually intervened in this impasse and called on both sides to, hey, come on, let's get back to the table and work this thing out. Yesterday afternoon, I took the opportunity to go on down to his place. By the way, he lives not that far from us here. He lives in the villa. And, oh, beautiful view from his place. Ooh, actually got some footage. He spent a few minutes just talking with me. And I said, you know, Bish, I'm not going to tell you what to talk about. I'm not even going to interview you. Because when you conduct an interview, you have a tendency to taint what the viewer or the listener as hearing, okay, just based on the questions. But I wanted all of these people to just shoot from the heart. I'm giving you some airtime. Talk to Grenada. Shoot from the heart. The bishop did just that. And so did the other three persons as well. So, last night, I had one of the other three actually have a sneak preview of what the bishop had to say. And he looked at me when he was through listening and said, "Whoa, George, that's powerful stuff." Yeah? Well, I'm not surprised, because the bishop has spoken out recently a couple of times. I think in addition to calling on the unions and government to sort things out, he also delivered a Christmas address, which was also very powerful. People are still talking about that on the streets here. So that's the reason why I saved that for last, okay? Now, that's going to be our first feature. These four folks whom I have described here on the website as voices to be reckoned with in 2019. Let's move on to feature number 2. By now, I guess it's all over the place that tomorrow, the lawyers of this country are going to walk. The lawyers have said enough is enough. And the Grenada Bar Association, I hope you don't have to find one tomorrow, because chances are you may not. I'm not saying you will not, I'm saying you may not. But the lawyers have decided they are going to begin a protest tomorrow morning. And that protest has to do with a conversation which I had here just a few weeks ago with the president of the Grenada Bar Association, Lisa Taylor. Of course, this issue goes back more than just a couple of weeks. They are not happy with the state of the court system here. Courtrooms are just not available for cases to be heard. And as you may have heard in her conversation with me some time ago, there are people who are waiting 5, 7 years to have their cases heard. Is that justice? Is that justice? They keep getting a lot of promises, and their frustration over a period of time has been building. And finally, they announced a couple of days ago that they are going to take to the streets. So, you'll get a lot more details when Lisa Taylor gets in here, and as I mentioned earlier, that will probably be about 11:30 or thereabouts, okay? So, my dear friends, that takes care of your rundown for today's, the 6th of January edition of Sundays with George Grant. Let me see, let's see here, Kipling Francis. Kipling has a note here, says, got a little froggy in the throat here this morning. Kipling says he's put a link up there where you can listen to the show. Well, yeah, I guess when Kipling didn't see us come on at precisely 9 o'clock like we normally do, he probably thought, oh, they're having some problems. Well, yeah, a little issue, but had nothing to do with the internet. So he quite kindly put a link up here, www.liveonlineradio.net, Grenada, Fresh FM? Fresh FM? For Grenada Broadcast? I don't think so. I don't think so. Anyhow, he says you can go listen there, so go check it out and let me know what you hear. If you hear us, great. If you don't, terribly sorry about that. Ryan out there says, good morning, George and class, from the Sunshine State of Florida at 51 degrees with a high of 71. Nice temperatures, Ryan. Nice temperatures. Enjoy. Ashton Thomas is also saying good morning. And so is Peter Bishop saying hi to the rest of the class from Long Island, wishing all a happy new year. It's not too late to do that, Ryan. And by the way, Ryan, excuse me, not Ryan, Peter. Peter, listen, man, I got to tell you this. You started something. You know, Peter and I go back a lot of years, and over that time, he's discovered that I am a fanatic when it comes to cranberry juice. And every time he comes to visit, Peter brings a bottle or two of cranberry juice. And, of course, the big mouth that he is, George talks about it on his program. Love it, love it. Peter, I had a visit here a couple of days ago from one of our very, very avid, very loyal listeners. And she had heard us talk about you and your cranberry juice. This woman walked in here, I think it was on Friday morning. She walked in here. 3 nice bottles of cranberry juice. So George is floating in cranberry all over the place this morning. I'm going to mention her name, Anthea Rello from Decatur in Georgia. Thank you so much, Anthea. That's going to take care of my cranberry desires for the next little while. Thank you. Well, I don't know how long, because I gobbled that stuff up like you wouldn't believe. So thank you very much. And Peter, thank you for getting that started. Okay, now, that's going to take care of our little introduction. I'll tell you something I also want to play this morning in the feedback section. In addition to having Little Angel with us, there's a little piece that I got from buddy Mr. Randall Robinson. This past week, Randall got ticked off. And he took to Facebook, published a short video there, where he's really agitated about the fact that he went to his bank to make a deposit and was told that because the check was from another bank, he would have to pay $1.50. Wow, that triggered him. So he sat down with his little smartphone and put together a little piece. I think it's about 2.5, 3 minutes long, and published that on Facebook. I saw it and have since spoken to a member of the Grenada Bankers Association, because Peter is calling on the Bankers Association to come forth and explain to the people why these charges. Not Peter, Randall. So I am still waiting on a response from the Bankers Association. And I honestly do hope that that will be forthcoming this week, okay? There have been a lot of charges being imposed by the banks, and they probably have very good reason. I don't know. I'm not an economist, an accountant, but a lot of people have been talking about the charges, which seem to be driving a lot of people crazy, especially in these gru days. So let's hope we can get somebody to come in here and talk with us just a wee bit. So, Pilgrims, we're going to play you Rando's little piece in a short while. But right now, let's take our first, oh, okay, hold on. Okay, let's go back to Facebook for just a minute before we really get rolling. Deborah, hello, Debbie. Deborah Parkus Stratus Robinson is saying good morning, George. A big hello to you too, Debbie. I certainly hope everything's out there. Everything's good out there where you are in the U.S. Anthea Rello. Anthea is back, yeah. I think she left, yesterday, Saturday. She went back up to Decatur yesterday. She says, morning, George and all. Back to reality and suffering from withdrawals. But I'm here. Girl, good to see you. And thank you so much, Anthea. Really, really appreciate it. Ryan Jaban, Dr. Ryan had to chime in on this. Just had to, Doctor. Dr. Ryan Jaban says, cranberry juice, good for the waterworks? Forgive me, Ryan, if I'm being a little bit naive here, but not sure what you're referring to when you talk about the waterworks. And Peter is out there as well this morning. Peter says, I will bring a case on my next visit. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful, boy? Wouldn't that be wonderful? I hope you folks out there are listening the next time he comes around here. A case of cranberry juice. A case! I wonder if that means we ain't going to be seeing Peter in a hurry. No, I'm only kidding, Peter. I'm only kidding, really. Gemma Monica Hunt says, leave the bank, go to credit union. Only last night I was told by a former bank manager here in Grenada, and he also played a role in the regional banking system, that a lot of people are leaving the banks and going to the credit unions. Trend? Don't know. Time will tell. Okay, Pilgrims, let me see here now. 9:30 on the button. Let's see here. Boy, we got some doctors in the audience this morning. Doctors. Dr. Margaret Francis. Hey, Mags. Mags is saying, oh, okay, hold on a sec. Mags is saying, Ryan is right. He means the urinary tract. What did I get started here this morning? Dr. Ryan, Dr. Margaret, let's see who else is there. I see you guys have got Dr. Deborah Parker Stratus smiling, so I guess that's our third doctor this morning. And Margaret goes on to say the kidneys as well. Okay. Anthea, looks like you're taking care of your son. Thank you so much, girl. So that's it on Facebook for the time being. Let me just scroll over here and take a look and see what's on Rumble Chat. Margaret is saying good morning on Rumble Chat. Kipling says, good morning, Mr. Grant, Mr. Chester, and class. God's blessings to all. My New Year wish is that God will restore our moral value and respect for the truth. Kipling, I think a lot of people would join you in that prayer. A lot of people, yeah. Then Margaret is saying good morning, everyone. She said, so she's saying good morning on Facebook and also on Rumble Chat. Stone, who's Stone? The Stone? Saying good morning. and a hopeful 2019 to all. So says Stone. I've seen stranger things happen. Jackie is saying good morning to you folks as well. We Will Rise is wishing you all a happy Sunday. And Isaac, OP, hello, OP. OP is saying good morning and a pleasant week to all. And so on that note, let's take our first little break.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Speyside.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Okie doke, folks, 24 minutes away from the hour. See a couple of notes here. First of all, we've been joined on Facebook by Bernard Gilbert. On Rumble Chat, Ernesto Jose says, good morning, G, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first edition of Education Sunday with Principal Grant of 2019. Morning to one and all. Okay, Ernesto, trying to make me blush, eh? Yeah. Thank you very much for your kind words, sir. I'm glad that somebody is learning. Also, there's a note here from Stone saying, yes, George, the same Stone from way back when. I've always been listening. Just got fed up at times. Now more so than ever. What fed you up, Stone? You know, when I saw the name Stone, I know that everybody knows our Prime Minister's nickname is Stone. So I thought, is he listening this morning? Not that it would make any difference to the program. But obviously it's not, because this is somebody who's saying here that we've known each other from way back when. Stone, maybe you can message me on Facebook and explain who Stone is. I'm curious, okay? Cheryl Jarvis is also joining us. She says, "Hey George, good morning. I have 2 friends coming down to Grenada on holiday. They are excited and asked me to suggest some major sites, some major sightseeing trios. Can you help?" Huh. Cheryl Jarvis, I'm wondering if that's the same. Last night, somebody posted something here on Rumble chat. Hold on a sec, and I responded. I'm wondering if it's the same person. Craig Mitchell, 1961 at gmail.com. I'm not sure if it's the same person. Nah, Craig Mitchell and Cheryl Jarvis. 2 different people, aren't they? But anyhow, Craig was asking on Rumble chat, can anybody tell me where I would find a good tour company who won't rip my visitors off? Yeah, okay. Well, Craig, I did post a response. I gave the names of two companies and their phone numbers. And I'm not sure if Cheryl Jarvis is connected with them, but yeah, just might be. Anyhow, Coylan Nash is also joining us, saying good morning, Mr. George and all. How is listening? Blessed Sunday to all. Folks, let's get into this week's edition. Let me cross my legs here and make myself comfortable. This week's edition of The Buzz begins with a reading from the Holy Scriptures. Brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many of you were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 26 to 29. You know why that is so important? There are a lot of people out there, very talented people, but they don't recognize that they are talented. And they may have certain dreams, but for whatever reason, they just decide not to pursue them because they feel, no, I can't do that. I'm not capable. Hey, folks, if you happen to be one of those, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 26 to 29, go take a read. Okay? Now, let's turn to Little Angel. Little Angel, taking off again this morning. Here she goes. Her contribution today says, Sharandis Persad. That's a name you heard a lot about in recent times. Guy who brought the government down in Guyana. Persad's vote of no confidence in the Guyanese government on December 21st, 2018 was a welcome surprise to those who recognized the need for a paradigm shift in Caribbean politics. Mr. Persad best described it on Facebook. He was a yes man and part of a yes man team. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary describes a yes man as a person who agrees with everything, who endorses or supports opinions or proposals without criticism. Oftentimes, such support is given in order to gain favor and to earn approval, making individuals prone to bribery and corruption. Saying yes to everything when everything may not be acceptable, fair, and just is similar to upholding what is not right. Mr. Prasad may wish to admit that he ceased being a yes man on that fateful day, but there is nothing wrong with being a yes man and supporting that which is equitable, noble, and upright. No cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. Words from Martin Luther King Jr., which should serve as a guiding principle for Caribbean leaders. The Guyanese MP claimed that he voted his conscience, a practice recommended for politicians. Sharandas Persad left Guyana soon after his no-confidence vote. Fleeing Guyana after voting one's conscience is not something to be proud of, since it speaks volumes about the practice of human rights and the level of governance in that country. Guyanese and the Guyanese government need to take this seriously and recognize that what took place in its parliament in December was a wake-up call that should never be ignored. For the time being, other Caribbean nations can only hope that the yes men in their parliament will find the fortitude to uphold that which is right and honorable, and that there will be less of those who find it much easier to support wrong. Doing and supporting wrong cannot be right, and doing right cannot be wrong. Caribbean people must do what is right, support and promote what is right, and condemn what is wrong. There you have it, pilgrims. There you have it, my friends. Little Angel's contribution on this first Sunday of 2019. Just glancing off to my left here, Dean Knott is saying good morning and wishing everybody a happy new year. And good morning, Grenada is saying good morning as well. Now that you've heard Little Angel's contribution, let's see where we go from here. Okay, I'll tell you where we go from here. Hold on a sec. Before I do that, let me get back to Facebook here for just a bit. Ashton Fletcher. Hello, Ashton. Saying peace and blessings to you, Mr. George. Ashton, Georgie Porgy, healthy and prosperous new year. Thank you very much, Ashton. Very kind of you. Hello, Sharon. Sharon Elizabeth Roberts, Wiltshire. Saying good morning, Gigi and everyone. Nice and cool morning here in Florida. Where you gone? Well, yeah, she gone. I knew she was leaving, okay? Sharon told us when she appeared with us here, I think it was on Wednesday, she's going to be off island for a little while. She's gone to Florida. But she's taken her laptop with her, and she's going to be joining us on Wednesday morning from Florida. Thank you so much, Sharon. And Fitzroy Adams is saying good morning to the nation as well. Okay, folks, let me go here, take another little break, and then we'll come back with the first of our two editorials this morning after this.
With free island-wide delivery, Hubbard's Building Supplies and Lumber Departments continue to provide the best quality lumber, steel, tiles, plumbing materials, electrical, and general hardware supplies at competitive prices. We continually consult with builders, homeowners, and contractors to improve product range and services. Enjoy discounts where applicable, including the use of credit and debit cards. At Hubbard's Building Supplies, Grandans, and Lumber Department, Caranage, we offer quality service, affordable prices, giving you the convenient, reliable, free island-wide delivery. Call 440-2087 for all your home improvement and building solutions.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our spice side.
Redlick, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Okay, we are back, and just before we fire up the first editorial, we've now been joined on Facebook by Danley Alexis. Good morning to you, sir. And Ryan Jabon, hey, little angel, you'll be happy to hear this. Ryan Jabon out there in Florida says, spot on, little angel. Grenada is enigmatic. Okay, folks, it's now 10 minutes away from 10 a.m. Let's get into the first of our two editorials, which comes to you from the Grenada Advocate. It is captioned, "A holistic approach is necessary." Christmas 2018 has come and gone. So too has New Year's Day celebrations. For some, the new year brings with it new challenges. However, as part of the transition, or the tradition, I beg your pardon, of assessing, reevaluating, and setting new goals at the start of a fresh year, Grenadians can take this time to formulate financial strategies and prepare mentally for the task ahead. Yet, this may only be one aspect of the personal reform that many will consider as part of the New Year's resolutions. People are known to list planned personal improvements in the areas of healthy living, spiritual renewal, discipline, and commitment to all endeavors, and better relationships with family and friends. And it is through improvements to these areas in one's life that financial success often comes, as it is practically impossible to target finances for growth while ignoring one's spirit, health, and one's social relationships. Too much of an individual's time, energy, and resources would eventually become invested in pulling up these other areas, and financial success would always remain out of reach. Instead, there needs to be a holistic approach to resolutions for personal development, giving each area as much effort as the next. However, as in all things, we should be wise to put God first. He has said that we should, quote, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Well, that's a quotation from Matthew chapter 6, 33. He has also asked us to call on him in times of trouble, and he will deliver us. Therefore, it would bode well for this society if everyone reaffirms their spiritual beliefs, demonstrates more compassion, and gives of themselves through services to the community, especially to the youth. Take time to reflect. And going forward, it will be difficult not to reflect on the year 2018. And in fact, it may be necessary to examine the past and learn from it in order to improve one's chances going ahead. Still, one should not dwell on the past to one's detriment. It is history and cannot be changed. Political figures should take note, especially of this fact, and not waste time pointing fingers as they often do. Look instead to the possibilities of tomorrow and in the future, and if the future appears daunting, dwell instead on the experiences of the present. Quote, take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Unquote. And that's a quote from Matthew 6, verse 34. It is important, too, that people offer support for others as they go through their challenges. Every person is different and has a different level of tolerance and different coping mechanisms. As a community, we need to provide support, especially emotional and moral support to those in need. It is crucial that people be given an outlet and an opportunity to express themselves and get support when they need it. One never knows when the shoe will be on the other foot. There you have it, Grenada, the editorial which appeared in this past week's edition of the Grenada Advocate. Okay, let me see here. I see there's a post here. I haven't read it before, so I'm hoping it makes sense. I'm going to take a shot. If it doesn't make sense, I'll just stop. Ernesto Jose says, what is going on in our country? Are we drunken or speeding? Is the order of the day on our streets. We heard in the news over 60 vehicular accidents in 7 days. I am calling on the traffic department along with the RGPF to step up and introduce serious penalties as taking away driver's license along with their vehicles for DWI, suspending licenses with jail time. Okay. I'm sorry, listeners. He's done it to me again, but my fault. I thought I'd take the chance and try. Let me take a little break here.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Okie dokie, folks. Can you believe it? Minute and a half after 10 o'clock, first hour gone in a heartbeat. Ryan says, yes, Matthew is right in that the past is history gone, but it informs the present and our future. Driving in Grenada is nuts. Boy, let me tell you. I'm hearing so many people talk about the state of driving in this place right now. It's really horrendous, really, really bad. I don't know. It's mentality because these people are trained by drivers and maybe trained to operate a vehicle, but not trained in common sense. You know, I think it was the assistant commissioner of police on the news a couple of nights ago saying that it's really a mindset, it's an attitude. People are just being inconsiderate, unreasonable, and not tolerant. I don't know. Whatever needs to be fixed. Mary Campbell says, good morning to everyone. May we all continue to enjoy the Creator's love and blessings. Celebrate life. Happy New Year to all. So says Mary Campbell. Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Now, folks, let's get into this past week's edition of The New Today. It is captioned, another state-run entity is now the subject of alleged wrongdoing. The New Today can inform the nation that it has officially written to the chairman of the board of directors of the Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, Dr. Brathwaite, to bring to his attention some troubling information in our possession. We are duly bound to inform the nation that Dr. Brathwaite has confirmed receipt of our letter and indicated that an investigation will be carried out into alleged wrongdoing with the funds of this state body. The allegation is that the credit card of the Solid Waste Authority was used without the approval of the board of directors to purchase 2 airline tickets, including one to facilitate an overseas trip somewhere in Europe by someone who is not known to be an employee of the statutory body. The information points in the direction of an individual who was a prominent member of the ill-fated 1979-1983 Grenada Revolution. There are also reports that the credit card was used to cover other expenses of a personal nature on this overseas outing, like hotel accommodation. The New Today was told that when the ticket was purchased for the overseas engagement, that no one from the Solid Waste Management Authority was known to be traveling to a European capital undertaking any function on behalf of the state entity. It begs the question, if no one from Solid Waste was on official business for the state body, then what was its credit card doing in Europe? Equally important is the related question that the person who used it was supposed to be on holiday from the authority at the time. Why would a person who's on holiday be using the credit card of Solid Waste and not surrender it? The New Today is also forced to ask the additional question, where is the credit card at the moment? Has it been surrendered to the authority? Our investigation points to Solid Waste Authority having 2 credit cards, one MasterCard and one Visa, for its sole use. It does not take a forensic accountant to undertake a simple exercise to find out whether the credit card of the state body was abused without the knowledge of the board of directors. The bank that issued the credit card often issues a financial statement on the use of that card. All the board of directors has to do is request from its financial department the bank statements for the 2 credit cards in the last 6 months for perusal. It is as simple as that. The New Today has no reason to doubt the sincerity of board chairman Dr. Brathwaite to carry out some kind of investigation into the allegation as brought to his attention by this newspaper. The chairman was seen on the compound of the authority on Monday, holding a series of meetings with the relevant staff members who should be able to shed some light on the alleged illegal use of the credit card. This newspaper is also getting some more troubling information about alleged wrongdoing at Solid Waste that the board of directors needs to investigate as a matter of urgency. There is another serious allegation surfacing that the letterhead of Solid Waste was used to help persons who are not employed with a state body to apply for visas to gain entry into the United States. If correct, this is fraudulent use of the property of this important and vital state body. It is well known that a number of persons have been prosecuted in Grenada for engaging in scams to get visas to enter the United States. 2 high-profile sporting personalities are currently facing fraud and forgery charges before the High Court in a U.S. visa scandal. This kind of activity raises serious questions about whether or not persons are not collecting money under the table for using the letterhead of Solid Waste to help persons to gain entry into the United States. The New Today is also calling for a probe into the manner in which contracts are awarded to persons by Solid Waste to engage in garbage disposal on the island. The evidence seems to point to political cronyism, especially in the rural areas, with persons getting contracts for not performing, still being paid handsomely. There is an allegation that an illegal dump site has been erected at a place called Windsor in St. Andrew, and someone hired by Solid Waste is allegedly dumping garbage at this location and not at the official site. It appears that the authority is aware of the development and in the past few days visited the area and was seen putting up a no dumping sign. That, Pilgrims, is your editorial from the New Today this past week. And that's going to take care of our editorial content for this week. Nothing there on Facebook and nothing there on Rumble Chat. Now, we're going to get into the first of our 2 features after our next little commercial break. And in this, we're going to hear from the chairman of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Gentleman paid me a visit last night. We did this recording last evening. Had a wonderful time chatting. And boy, I learned a lot about this country. Grenada is such a fascinating place, you know. The stories I learned from people who come to sit in these chairs here. Some good, some frightening. Let me take a little break. Come back.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Speyside.
Renlec, energizing our Grenada.
You know, I'm always very open with you folks. And it seems like this morning I'm having a bout with Alzheimer's disease. Yeah. I promised you at the top of the program this morning that I would share with you a short video clip from Mr. Randall Robinson. Randall's a little bit peeved with having to pay $1.50 to deposit a check at one of our local banks. And I did promise you I would play that piece for you. Totally. Here goes.
Good morning, folks. Happy New Year. Now imagine my shock and horror this morning when I got to my bank to deposit a check. I was informed by the cashier that to deposit a check from another bank now costs $1.50. Could you imagine that? Now let us consider that this bank may deposit on people will deposit to this bank probably in excess of 1,000 checks for the day from other banks, because not every business has an account in every bank, and they will deal with customers from across the spectrum. So a business like a supermarket, right? Like the Indian stores perhaps, and people like Hubbard's and Huggins and all of those other companies like that. They do a lot of business via check. They now have to pay to deposit those checks $1.50. So suppose the bank, let us say, on average, processes from other places 1,000 checks for the day. That is $1,500 for the day, multiplied by 250 working days of the year. That gives us a total of $375,000, brothers and sisters, that these banks are just putting to their bottom line. Somebody needs to explain why these charges have come on board. None of the banks is making a loss. So why are we being taxed by the banks to do business with them? It is time the Bankers Association come out and explain to the public of Grenada why these new charges are being applied, especially in light of the fact that they are already making profits, brothers and sisters. I think it's only reasonable for us to try to understand what is taking place. We have to start asking questions as citizens. We cannot continue to sit down and take our debts like sheep. So I am asking the Bankers Association to come and explain to the public if not to the public, to me. Why? I must be paying $1.50 to deposit a check into my account because it comes from another bank. I need to understand that. Thank you very much. And I hope you all understand where I am coming from. Take care. God.
Oi, Randall. Oi, Randall. Okay. And as I mentioned, hopefully this week we will have a response from the Grenada Bankers Association. Now, here's a comment that was posted a little while ago pertaining to another segment. Fitzroy Adams says, "Good morning, George. Corruption started from the top of the ladder. What do you expect from the bottom? What monkey see, monkey do." I haven't heard that term in a long time, Fitzroy, but thank you very much for reviving it. And now, just before I fire up the first segment of our main feature, one of our features this morning, many of you who've been listening to this program over the years know that we have a regular who has been joining us faithfully, I mean faithfully, for years. He lives in Switzerland, Zurich, Switzerland. And I'm sure you've also noticed that over the past few weeks, we haven't seen or heard from him. Folks, this man was seriously ill. Seriously ill. But you know what? I'm taking a look at my monitor off to the left here. And what do I see? Chester Simon. Chester Simon is back. Chester, boy, you don't know how happy we are to see you. I'm not going to go into details, but I know what you've been through. And I am just thankful that the prayers of so many people have been answered. And here you are. I imagine you're on your smartphone this morning. Here you are, in the flesh. Chester says on Rumble Chat here, just poking in my nose here this morning from Zurich. Happy New Year to everyone, Mr. Kipling. Blessings to all. Ches, God's been good to you, boy. God's been good to you. Keep on being thankful. And we look forward to you reassuming your rightful place on Rumble Chat in the days and weeks and months and years ahead. Okay? Welcome back. Okay, folks, let's see here. Back to Facebook for a sec. Sharon says, I agree with Randall. Maybe we have to insist that people pay us in cash. Yeah, Randall was complaining about being charged $1.50 to deposit a check. You go to your bank to make a deposit. But because that check was not written by that bank, some other bank wrote it, you have to pay $1.50. There's got to be some sort of explanation. Let's try and hear it this week. Ryan says, Amen. God is good. Hang in there, Chester. See, Chester, they were just waiting on you to poke your nose in, man. Welcome you with open arms. And on Rumble Chat, MSF, young lady in New York, says, good to see you, Chester. Best wishes for a speedy and full recovery. He's on his way, MSF. He's on his way. This man, been through a tough time. Okay, so yes, now, I mentioned to you that you're about to hear from the president of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Lester Andall. Lester came by here last night, spent a few minutes with me, and I asked him to open up his heart about the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Here's what he had to say.
This is your Chamber President giving you a perspective on the Chamber's work for 2019. As you would be aware, the Chamber is an advocacy body that represents the private sector. Advocacy in the sense that the Chamber represents its members' interests and is not necessarily a body that it informs its members on action to be taken. In other words, the members raises issues and the Chamber would advocate with government or any other institution that the members so direct. Now, in 2019, the Chamber focus would be on members' engagement. This is something we have started in 2018, where the Chamber Executive went around, is going around, continue that in 2019 to meet the general membership, to find out and to engage. In other words, we are not going to represent our views in terms of what we feel. We want to hear it from the members. The emphasis is hearing, engaging, and finding solutions through advocacy. The Chamber is represented on the Committee of Social Partners, and it gives us a real-time link to discuss and engage with government on pertinent issues that members would raise. Interestingly, one of the challenges that the Chamber has, on its agenda is the issue of training. Now, I say training because if you look at the transition of the Grenada economy from basically agriculture, plantation agriculture based now to a service-based economy, it's like leapfrogging. And the competencies for participating in a service-based economy is not yet fully developed. There is some comfort in doing what you know best, and that is the traditional economy where the government continues to and is the main source of employment. However, the shift into a service economy means that entrepreneurial skills would be required, and to that extent the Chamber is bringing on board small and medium enterprises that represents the growth sector in this new service economy. The challenge is one of agility. You know, the business sector more or less looks to the government as providing the enabling infrastructure. Government provides the enabling infrastructure. But once government provides the enabling infrastructure to tax incentives and other means, the government gets out of the way and let the business sector carry on its business. It would be kind of facetious to say that the business sector is meeting this challenge, because the skills that are required in the new service sector, we do not have it. And if we are not careful, in meeting the new service challenge, we'll have to bring in expertise, experience, and knowledge, because our technicians and our people are not yet at the level of service delivery. The issue of standards, the issue of quality control, and the issue of entrepreneurial abilities in terms of networking, it's not yet fully developed. And these are the challenges that face the new entrepreneurs. It's not about solely taxes and tax breaks. It's once you get a tax break, how do you move to make money and to employ others and employ others and employ others to push the economy? The Chamber engages with its members, and part of that discussion is on developing the human resource. We say developing the human resource because if we do not take a look at who comes into the business sector, the skill sets that we get, we would be unfair to sustaining a competitive advantage if we do have one. The basic skills of math and English, it's concerning. People come into the workforce and they're not quite prepared with basic literacy and numeracy skills. And we say before that, you know, we put people to work with their hands. Suffice it to say, you must now understand how to use computers and how to read the programs and how to make it work. And if you're coming into the business sector without basic numeracy and literacy skills, it's problematic. The market is not as we know it next door. The market is global. And it means that a Grenadian business can access a service opportunity that exists in another economy. In other words, it might be in the UK. It may be, for example, clothing and the design and delivery. However, we must understand standards. We must understand what it takes for a consumer in a particular economy to want our product. It's not about making and selling anything. We are accustomed to an economy that was driven by commodities. In other words, we sell cocoa, we export bananas, we export nutmeg. Now we are seeing that the value added of manufacturing in the stream creates more opportunities than just moving the cocoa and the nutmeg from the estates, from the growers' place of delivery. The challenge is to make ourselves agile. And I use the term agile in terms of how we think, how we conceptualize entrepreneurship, and how we conceptualize opportunities. A challenge that arises is one of language. We speak English, and to some extent, we have a good familiarity with Spanish. But the largest economy outside of the United States in this region speaks Portuguese. And nowhere in our system are we preparing Portuguese language competence. So there is a problem. We cannot continue doing the same things and expect different results. We are what we are, but we need to move to a different level. Educating our people, improving their competence, and at the same time engaging with government so that they provide the right incentives so that business opportunities would in fact emerge and employment opportunities would continue. It's not about business as usual, as I said before. The economy is service driven. It's no longer commodities driven. but it requires a new set of skills. It requires a new realization of what the global economy is looking for. We have to be prepared. And the business community would be calling on the educational system to provide the technicians and the technocrats that can make this transition from commodity to finished product. We, at the Chamber, we would continue the dialogue through social partners. We'll continue dialogue with our members, and we continue dialogue with partners in our systems, that's the educational system, to improve and create enabling conditions so that the economy can grow, can prosper, and at the same time, all the young people that are coming out of college would find employment, gainful employment, an employment that makes them feel esteemed in this Grenada, our Grenada. Thank you.
Okay, there you have it, Lester Andall. We did that last night. Lester used to be manager, I think, of the Grenada breweries. He's now retired and is running a consultancy firm. He's also the president of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Thank you. So you now understand a little bit about the plans for the Chamber 2019. And up until last night, it's been quite a little while since last I had an opportunity to sit and chat with him. But he has promised me that starting in February, we're going to see more of him. He's promised to keep us up to date on what the Chamber is doing, and that's great, great news. Now, let me get back here. I want to get back here because we went so quickly into Lester. I want to get back here to some comments on Facebook that were made about that piece that I played from Randall Robinson. Ryan, very vocal. Ryan out there in Orlando says, boycott Grenada banks and use the credit union. Wilmot Mark is saying Happy New Year to you folks. And Lawrence Kruthoff is saying, hi Chester, Happy New Year to you and your family. God's blessings. Yeah, man. People are so happy to see Chester back this morning. And Kelvin Lewis is saying, it's good, Rondo. It good, Rondo, pay $150 just to cash a check. In First Caribbean, it's 11.7. Ha 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 ha. I think I'm making sense of this now. Kelvin is saying, it's good that Randall only paid $1.50 just to cash a check. In First Caribbean, it's $11.70. I think that's what he's trying to say here. Can you believe that? Woo! Sharon says, Ryan, what an excellent idea. The credit unions are a great alternative to the banks. Yeah. As I mentioned, I heard a lot of people are turning to credit unions. Then Coylan Nash says, good morning. He says, hey, Verna, good morning. Glad you're watching. Blessed Sunday. Lydia James is saying good morning to you folks. And good morning to Mr. Andall, my old boss at MBIA. That's right, I forgot that. Lester also was the manager of the Maurice Bishop International Airport at one time. Glenn Andrew Mark is also saying good morning. Clive hello, Clive. Hope you're enjoying, despite the circumstances, I hope you're enjoying your visit to Grenada. He says, SME sector. India's GDP composition, according to multiple sources, is as follows. Agriculture, 16%. Industry, 26%. Services, 58%. Not only do these services MSMEs contribute mightily to the overall GDP growth, they have a powerful multiplier effect on local economies. You can always count on Clyde to be informative. Kelvin Lewis says, yeah, once you're not a member, you're in trouble. So once I work with clients who I know have accounts there, once they can't pay in cash, I normally add that additional clearing cost, RBTT, right behind First Caribbean. See, folks, people are concerned about those fees. They're concerned. Agatha Jordan says, a very happy new year to you and your listeners, hoping that we would be truly blessed in the months and years that follow. Girl, a lot of us share that optimism, that hope. And Davini Leo says, good morning and productive and prosperous 2019 to all. Sundays with George Grant has been and continues to be a source of education. For many, my prayer is that Gigi God. I think I understand. For many, my prayer, Gigi, is that God will bless you with good health as you educate many. Keep up the good works. Thank you, Davini. He's been good to me with health for the past year. And I do expect him to continue. Boy, he's done a lot with me in terms of health care throughout this life. Yeah, he's a good God. Ryan says, only have praises for Grenville Cooperative Credit Union. I think that's it on Facebook. Now, continuing along the banking issue, there's a note here on Rumble Chat from Mary Campbell. Mary says, Mr. Grant, there is a bigger issue. That is, why does the bank hold on to a citizen's money for 6 weeks when, in this day and age, it takes a few minutes to transfer cash and or to clear a regional or international transaction with a personal check? It takes 7 days or less. So why the holding and denial of access to funds for 6 weeks? Okay. Pilgrims, you have heard from Lester Andall, Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Up next, I want you to hear from a gentleman who's been very vocal with the pen, Mr. William Joseph. He's a policy analyst. And he's another one of those people, another one of us, I should say, who's concerned about the direction in which we see this country going. And he shared some thoughts with us, very deep thoughts. I'm going to take a little break. When I come back, I want you to hear what this man had to say. But first,
General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company. Tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive. Motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary. Public liability. Professional indemnity. Directors liability. And wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Spice Island.
Renlick, energizing our Grenada.
I'll tell you what. There's a note here now from Chester. I guess Chester, boy, I'm hoping that you're really happy to see the response to your return on the Shoutbox on Facebook. Chester says, I just got news while listening to GrenadaBroadcast from my doctor. He told me I'm leaving for home tomorrow. Okay? And then he goes on to say, so he wants his clothes back. Make sure you leave the people clothes in the hospital. Just please, please. I'm sure you have your own at home. And boy, I also want to say hello to your dear wife, because I imagine that this must have been a very, very trying time for her. But she stood by your side, and I bet she's going to be one happy camper to have you back in the hood tomorrow. Okay? So, folks, right now, we're going to turn to Mr. William Joseph as he shares some thoughts about the way forward for beautiful little country of ours. First of all, let's put Willie up there. Here goes.
First of all, let me extend my personal best wishes to fellow citizens. It's the beginning of the new year, 2019, and it's an appropriate time for us to pay tribute to families and to country. It's very, very important. We say family, we say country. Essentially, we are touching on the Grenadian society. And as we begin 2019, I'm sure that there are many of us who have very deep concerns regarding the state of the Grenadian society. It is always useful to bear in mind that apart from money issues, there are several other important issues that affect the lives of the people of the country. And we in Grenada have our fair share. We've had it in the past, and we continue to have our fair share of difficulties and troubles regarding the state of the society. How we treat one another, how our leaders relate to us, how they treat us, the extent to which our institutions are playing the roles that they were intended or designed to play, what is happening in communities among ordinary people, and so on, whether the present situation is one where we are experiencing a decline in the quality and nature of the interaction among ordinary people. And if that is the case, then clearly we would need to begin to do something, take actions to correct that kind of situation. So my first concern is to signal that the state of the Grenadian society is not a very happy one. And we all know that money can't solve and bring us happiness. So don't bother to say, well, you know, money is there and so on and so on. That doesn't cut it. There are other issues that send us down the screaming stream. Yeah, where we become very unhappy. Things are happening that cause us to ask ourselves whether this is the same Grenada that we've known for a long time, simply on account of the nature of crime and antisocial behavior and other forms of conduct that we see practiced from time to time. So that is the first observation. There's a very popular issue now, which I should like to comment on, and that having to do with the industrial relations situation in Grenada. Now, you know, there will always be industrial challenges between employers and employees from time to time. There is a role in the context where the government is the employer. There is an expectation on the part of many, many citizens that the role of the leadership of government is to provide solutions to problems, not to inflict injustice. Let me repeat that. The role of the leaders in government is to provide solutions to problems, not to inflict injustice on the people, whatever form or forms that might take. So we are in the middle of this issue now, and depending on where you sit, you know, there might be a temptation to take sides. The issue is not about taking sides. We will not make any progress if some of us take side A and some of us take side B. The question is, how can we work towards a consensus on what really and truly is beneficial for the stability, peace and good order of the Grenadian society. So I make that observation. I read recently in the Prime Minister's New Year message a reference to the discussions on pensions and so on, and it appears in his view to be a twofold issue. One is pension restoration, which he claims the regime has satisfied, and the other is what is called pension reform. And implicit in what he is saying is that while he accepts that there's going to be the need for discussions, and they gather around the table supposedly for that purpose, he's already saying and signaling that the reform component of that discussion does not include gratuity. Well, therefore, what are we discussing? If we are discussing, because that is what he's saying, restoration, so those that fell under the law, he's tied that up and he's paid. But those that are not there, the reform does not include the payment of gratuity. Now, so let us understand it. The Constitution itself doesn't talk about gratuity. It talks about pension. And so if we are talking pension in the context of pension reform, we have to be talking about several things. And in fact, one aspect of which might well be or ought to be the issue of gratuity. So if we are accepting that there's going to be pensions, then we ought to be prepared to discuss the question of gratuity, which is a subset of the pensions issue. So now, having raised this issue of the gratuity, I had published this view before, and I think it bears repeating. Listen, when our grandparents and parents and others who cared for us worked on the estates, they were in a relationship with somebody called the estate owner. He owned things. They saw the estate house and the lands, and they knew that they themselves could not own these things. But they said to themselves, you know what? If I send my child, my daughter or my son to school, he or she is going to own something at some point. So what was the formula? Learn, earn, own. Now the gratuity, this is very significant. That is an emancipation mandate for working people to get to own something. Otherwise they remain slaves. You see, that is a differentiating factor. The progress towards ownership. And we are not talking about ownership of millions. We are talking about ownership of small plots of land or small houses, homes, houses and so on that people get to own. So the way the gratuity thing functions, and I speak with it passionately because, I mean, I've passed through the system myself. And the fellas told you, the older fellas in this public service at the time, they say, boy, You know the salary ain't big. But after you do the years and so on, you'll get a gratuity and you're going to be able to do something with that. What is that something they're talking about? In practical terms, it means that a lot of the people who are leaving, having done the time, receive a lump sum of money, which is based on the pension rights, which lump sum is used primarily to settle their significant debts and obligations. One of that, in fact the primary one of that, the one I'm flagging, is a question of settling the mortgage on the little house. Because it therefore means that once you settle the mortgage, you clear it up, you now own the house. That is what working people are going to own. They are not going to own anything else in their lives. But if they don't receive the gratuity, 90% of them will never own the houses. So we understand, is it preferable for us to say, okay, let the bank own the house forevermore, or let the credit union own the house forevermore? Or is it not better for the economy and the society where increasing numbers of ordinary citizens own their own homes? So it makes financial sense to me. It makes economic sense to me, and taken together, it strengthens the social cause of the society, that ordinary people can stand up and say, this is what I own, having worked all my lifetime. You take away the gratuity, and you condemn them to having to pay the mortgage forevermore out of the monthly pension. You see, and that is the crux of the matter. You might be able to, using the pension, to pay the monthly obligation towards the mortgage, but you will never own. You will never get to own. And I think that is where the crux of the matter is. There's another element of it that has come up that disturbs me a lot, and I'm sure it disturbs a lot of other citizens of Grenada. This question, and we copied this from other systems, where we believe that we must activate our base and set the base to fight the other side. But in the Grenada context, what are we doing? We are setting up one set of poor people to fight against another set of poor people. What are we doing? How can that be of value to the Grenadian society? And I read very recently of an engagement with the pastors and so on. And it intrigued me because I said to myself, well, so now what are we seeking to do? We are seeking to engage pastors to back aside. Is that the proper role of the church in this period? To back aside? So we call the churches together, the pastors and so on, and we give them the line of march, and in the expectation that because we give them other things, they will take our side and seek to persuade ordinary churchgoers and other people and so on to back the thing. So you see, you know, it's very interesting. I remember, you know, as I talk about pastors and so on. So now it's pastor versus pastor, poor versus poor, pastor versus pastor, and priest versus priest. You see, that is going to be the setup. We're digging some serious holes. And I remember as a boy attending the Anglican church where the priest was a Pastor Smart, Anthony Smart. You know, and before long, we heard that Father Smart had left the church to become chaplain to Sir Eric Gary. No. You see how the church can be used? Oh, elements in the church, you know. So a fellow in the church and so on, he's a pastor, he's a priest, and he's made happy by a certain package and so on, he sends himself. So if Eric Gary had a personal chaplain, well, maybe I should have one too. And I can have a personal chaplain, and he will pray to God for me, so that while he's praying for me, I could do a number of things with them to people. So we have to be concerned about what is unfolding, what is the message that it is sending across the population. So I think I've run a little bit on this question of the industrial relations climate. All of us would like to would welcome a resolution to the thing, but the resolution is not going to come with one side beating down the other. The resolution is going to come out of a situation where people work at agreeing on a state of affairs that is reasonable and fair to both sides. That is the thing. So when we call the churches, it must be to ask the churches to help us, not to be down the other side, but to help us with ideas regarding what we can put on the table in an effort towards reaching common ground. That's why you must call them, not to give them the line of march regarding pension and gratuity, so they go and fight down poor people and so on on our behalf. You know, that is not it. So we live now in a situation where that original dream, what I call it the emancipation dream, of working people getting to own something, small people getting to own something, is under threat in Grenada if these thousands of public officers and police and teachers and so on never get a reasonable gratuity. That gratuity being a function, an element, a subset of the pension benefits. That's really what it is. And it makes perfect sense to pay a gratuity because of what the gratuity does, the work it does, its role in ensuring that we have a class of poor people who get to own something before they die. And that's the crux of the matter. So there is that. There is also they tell us that the structural adjustment program is over, and we've celebrated, some of us, the results of the structural adjustment program. Grenada has achieved so much, and best minister of finance and fastest growing economy and all of these things. Well, okay, if that makes you happy, those who are happy by that, then that's fine. But the reality is that virtually every element of that program remains locked in. You cannot tell me you're giving me 1% relief in taxation and tell me that is evidence that the program is over. Really and truly, that can't be the case. So what we have continuing is the high level of taxes imposed during the structured adjustment program, supposedly for the purposes of that program. But they are still there. While the program is said to be officially over, they are still there. So what is it telling us? It is telling us that we are living in an economy that is propped up. It has been propped up. It's a make-believe situation. We are not doing as well as we think. Why? Because the production needle has not really moved. So we're more efficient at collecting taxes. Many of that is very captive. But when it comes to generating wealth via production, there isn't much that we have to show for it. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why there is so much alarm, so much panic when the reality hits home that, boy, to find these millions to pay a gratuity bill might in fact mean the demise of a political phenomenon. You see, I use it too much heavy words. You find that you have to pay this big gratuity bill and so on, and it threatens power. said this could mean that I could lose power. And therefore, what do? I fight it. Yeah? I try to fight it down. So, I don't know when, let me put it differently, we will not get out of those conditions, the high property taxes, the high income taxes, and so on, until and unless the production needle in this country moves. I was at a place some time ago where a number of young Grenadian professionals were talking about the economy. And primarily their concern was about the fiscal side of the economy. It is not the only aspect of the economy. They had precious little to say about what is going to happen on the production side, but they had a lot to say regarding the fiscal side. The taxes and how we spend and what we don't spend and so on and so on. That, and you see how that is limited in and of itself. It is not a complete story of the state of the Grenadian economy, and therefore a lot of us continue to be worried and concerned about how much the Treasury continues to take from us via these high taxes that were originally imposed for purposes of the structural adjustment program. So there is that. I think perhaps finally a view or two regarding this question of accountability. 2018, very interesting year for us, because I think that's when, for the first time, we heard a little bit more on this question of oil and gas for Grenada in our territory, in our waters, either in our EEZ or in our territorial waters, as the case might be. And Trinidad and Tobago media, through the Minister for Energy down there and so on, told us a bit more than our own government told us regarding what is likely to happen with the fines with any fines of gas and so on that would be owned by Grenada. And the point is this, that while information was introduced several months ago regarding that, we have not had a regular updating on the progress or the status of this issue of oil and gas, which would constitute for many of us a new economic frontier. And that's why it is so important. If the economy is struggling as much as it is, and people have to pay so much in taxes, then all of us would have an interest in a new area of production. So talk to us, account to us on what is going on in that regard. There is virtually a similar picture regarding the CIB, Citizen by BI, the way you pay for citizenship and so on. I know some of that money was earmarked to meet certain obligations. But the rest of it, what is really going on? Who knows? Who knows? I don't know that we have said, for example, you know what? There's a problem in education in Grenada. Let us use X percentage of that CBI resources to help us to deal with the education problem, what some might call the education deficit. You can say poverty. It is such a big problem for us, but have we said, for example, that we will use $50 million annually from the CBI in support of programs to alleviate poverty? So in other words, if we did the thing that way, at the end of a period of time, 3 years, 5 years, we might well have something to show for having sold our citizenship and so on. A benefit on the other side for having done that. So we don't know. And there's one that intrigues me a little bit, which is the Marketing Board inquiry or investigation, right? Which curiously has been taken in hand by the Commission for what's it called again? Integrity Commission, and they have taken it in hand and so on, and they are giving snippets of information. But I read the act setting up the CBI. No. And the one is one that intrigues me a little bit, which is the marketing board inquiry or investigation regarding the marketing board involves 3 sets of players. Not one set, not the person who is being the main subject of the investigation. It involves 2 other players. It involves the board of directors and the minister responsible for finance, or whoever the minister responsible for the MNIB is. So you cannot have an inquiry regarding money matters surrounding the marketing board that focuses on one of the 3 and does not in fact subject the other 2 players to serious scrutiny. And that is something which people ought to pay some attention to under the broad question of government accountability to the people of Grenada. And it is high time, in my view, that that people who run these parastatals, these corporations and so on, whether it is Lotto or whether it is marketing board or whether it is you name it, that they understand that they are public bodies. They're not laws unto themselves, and they certainly do not exist to facilitate political interests. They exist for the benefit of the society, and therefore they are accountable, all of them, to the people, because they are public bodies, and we are entitled to ask questions and to receive answers from them regarding aspects of their operations. So it is time, I think, for us to shift gears, 2019, to shift gears, to concern ourselves more about what is happening with our society, to involve ourselves in the future direction of the society, to commit ourselves to contributing to resolving problems and issues surrounding and affecting the Grenada society. So let us pray. We don't wish. We must not be wishing. We must pray. In the anthem, there's a very powerful line in there that says, "Ever conscious of God." You know, and those of us who believe that who say that we are believers, we paraphrase that: in Him and with Him. That is how we progress. In Him and with Him. So let us pray. Let us pray and let us act in faith, believing that God will bless us and He will grant us favor as we go forward as a Grenadian nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah. Willie Joseph, policy analyst. He's obviously pinched a few nerves here on Facebook. I see, first of all, let's see here. Ryan says, very true, William. Money does not bring happiness, albeit the mighty sparrow says, no money, no love. Okay, Ryan. Willie, a lady by the name of Lydia James agrees with you. She says, great explanation, Willie. Yes, Willie, you said it best. Back aside. Grenadians understand that. Ryan says, get a war. Get the war, William. Lydia comes back and says, yes. Others are afraid to say that. Willie, you are fearless. Speak the thing. You're right on track. Fitzroy says, this is the type of divide and rule tactics that this government is using to oppress the poor and hard working class nation, while they're filling their pockets So says Fitzroy. Lydia James says, the Donald Trump of the Caribbean. And Lydia says, thank you, Willie, for such a great explanation. And Lawrence Kruthoff says, very well said, Mr. Joseph. We need to talk more. Yeah. You know, a lot of the voices you're hearing here this morning, I do expect you're going to be hearing a lot from them on this program in the year ahead of us. Kipling says, prayer is good, but God only answers fervent prayer. That's true, Kipling. Very, very true. I think that's it. Oh, hold on a sec. There's a note here from our friend Nesta. Nesta says, jet lagged. Greetings, George. Just popping in to wish you and all a happy new year. New challenges, new successes, and a great year ahead. It's nice to see that level of optimism about the new year. Yeah, I think we all acknowledge that we do have challenges ahead, but by God's grace, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. A lot to look forward to this year. Now, we have heard from Willie. And right now, I'd like us to turn to Mr. Lydon Lewis, who is the president of the Grenada Union of Teachers. You know what he's coming in to talk about. Where is he? Here he is.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, those listening to your program, Mr. Grant. And a special Happy New Year to the teachers and working people of this country. I want to wish you all the best for 2019. I believe that this year would be a pivotal year in our existence as a people, our struggle as working people to overcome and to prosper and to bring some sort of semblance to what workers should have and what they can retire to. 2018 has been a very difficult year for us. It has been one filled with challenges, both economically, with the current economic struggles of workers to make ends meet, and to provide for their families with ever-increasing prices and wages not rising to meet what the prices in the shops or in the supermarkets. It is also was a difficult year for workers, bearing in mind that their hopes and aspirations and expectations were put to shambles with the current discussion on pension and gratuity. And it has been even more difficult for us as leaders within the trade union movement, having to articulate on our workers' behalf and being subjected to some very cruel comments, allegation, propaganda, and an attempt to create many smoke screens and provide red herrings so that the working people and the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique do not focus on the real issue at hand, which is pension and gratuity, and create many distractions for them so that the sole issue being discussed is lost in all of this. Let me say that as we prepare for school 2019, I want to remind teachers that teaching is a work of art. They need to do their work with diligence. They need to give ample time to the performance of their duties and ensure that the students entrusted to the care perform at the optimum. However, I must insist that our work to rule continues, and that teachers are expected to do what they're paid to do within the normal school day, and thereafter leave the rest up to government to decide what happens. Remember, we took that decision following the docking of our salaries at the end of November, and we did indicate to government long before the end of November that if they decide to do this, then we will take the actions that we have taken. Now, many persons would have said that they believe that the action has been felt throughout the system. However, as we step up the action, we believe that it would be even greater felt in the new school year. Bearing in mind that fundraisers were all put to a halt, most of them, 90+%, and the schools and teachers are the ones who have been providing for their own existence, who have been doing their own fundraising activities, who have been providing chalk, material, resources for the school. Now it would be up to the government of Grenada to provide these resources. Also bearing in mind that teaching and teachers are the only public servants who have to provide their own materials for the functioning of their duties. So we believe that this in itself would create a serious challenge for government, and we ask teachers not to give up, but to continue what we'd have started in 2018. In addition, we know that the sports season will be badly affected, including national primary school sports, and we're hoping to have a conversation as to what would happen with Intercall 2019. However, teachers are not sports teachers, and those who are paid as sports teachers and physical education teachers are expected to do what they have to do. However, no teacher can be forced to participate in sporting activities because that's not part of their duties. And we as union will ensure that teachers' rights in that context is not violated and not violated. As we look back on what would have transpired in 2018 regarding the pension and gratuity issue, we are totally disappointed currently with where we are. We started our industrial action, and when I say we here, I mean the unions, and we were well on our way to pressing home our point that pension and gratuity is not a request, it is a right. It is an earned right of the worker that after they would have given so many years to government, that they can now go home and take care of themselves, their families, and whatever is left of their mortgage and study and loans and so on. And we went back to the table, listening to our religious leaders and others, although many of our members felt that we should not have gone back. Based on the comments made by our leader the very night before we were to return to the table. However, in good faith and keeping in mind the fact that we were beseeched by Bishop Clyde Harvey to return to a new table. From since then to now, nothing has happened. Absolutely nothing. We've had a few meetings. And what is even more frustrating, at the very last meeting, it was reported that the new leader of the Pension Engagement Committee, which is Honorable Oliver Joseph, has indicated that the government doesn't owe us anything. In fact, the discussions, the government is doing us a favor to sit around the table to engage in these discussions. And many of my comrades felt insulted by these comments by the Honorable Minister, and it is what would take the discussions to another level. They have proposed 8% of government's portion of the pension, and we felt that in some instances that would amount to $0.00, and we are prepared to do some calculations and show the public what this would mean. We have asked the minister to do some calculation and show us how this 8% of government portion would be better for the worker, and he has since refused to do so. He has not presented any data, any figures or statistics regarding that issue. They have provided us with some of the data we requested. However, we noticed some discrepancies and some inaccuracies in some of the information they have provided to us, so it's a matter that has to be discussed. At this point, we believe that we have gotten nowhere, and that government is kicking the can further down the road. They're playing for time, and we cannot agree to that strategy by government. For those who were critics and said that government only wants us back at the table to do exactly what is happening now, you be the judge, or whether you're right or whether you're wrong. But remember, we always maintain that we're going to put country first, and that we're going to do the honorable thing by returning to the table. Now the government has shown its dishonor rebel taste or side to the discussion. I think the unions have decisions to make. Unions do have decisions to make as to what we do going forward. It is also important that in the whole context of the docking of teachers and public workers' salary, let me start first with the docking of the public workers' union salary. Just mere days before Christmas, we saw that move as an unconscionable. It was in poor taste. It was inhumane that being a Christian nation right before the Christmas where we expect to spend time with our families, serious amounts of monies were taken away again from workers' salary. If you say that your policies, you don't work, you don't get paid, that monies could have been deducted differently at a different period, in different tranches. But to do so right before the Christmas shows a level of apathy towards workers that has never been seen in this country before, or not to my memory. And so it speaks volumes to the current leadership we have of the country and how the leadership sees our people and where workers stand in the whole context. Remember that these were the same workers that made the sacrifice for us now to boast about sustained economic growth of over 5% and all that would have benefited. It was the workers that made the sacrifices. So to treat workers in such a callous, disrespectful manner now is being, in my opinion, very ungrateful to the working people of this country. It is also significant to note that the money is deducted from teachers' salary that, and let me make it absolutely clear, our members have said they've lost, they felt it, but they're prepared to do it all over again. They're prepared to struggle because they know what is at the end for them. And so workers are not scared, teachers are not scared of what was done. However, the teachers who are legitimately out on doing some national duties, some sick, some doing the same referendum duties, they're all waiting for the reimbursement of their salaries, and that has not happened. We have an entire school that was sent home by the Ministry of Education for faulty wiring at that school, and these persons are yet to receive their salaries, knowing fully well that their salaries were docked illegally. So what we've decided to do as a union is to contest this current situation in the court of law. We're preparing our legal team, and they would file on these workers' behalf, because between the time it was docked to now, we felt it was ample time for government to gather its information as to who were legitimately owed and who were part of the rest and reflection promoted by the union. As much as we're willing to fight and struggle, workers must not, salaries must not be illegally docked in any given situation. So that's a pressing matter for us, and an issue that we will seek to remedy through the court of law. And so we would meet with our teachers and get from them who were there and who were not, who were out, legitimately so, and most likely file a class action suit against government for the docking of their pays. So this is one of the areas we'll be exploring. We'll also be exploring all other avenues available to us. Remember, George, we have a collective agreement that was signed in 1987 by the then Dr. Right Kit Mitchell, acting on behalf of government in the Ministry of Finance, and Chester Humphrey, signed on behalf of workers, that restored pensions in its original form through the bargaining table. We intend to explore that option. We also intend to explore the options of the legitimacy of the Pension Disqualification Act and what the Constitution holds for us. But together with all of this, we'll continue to struggle on the industrial front for as far as and as long as we can, given the fact that government has shown no indication that they want this matter resolved. I think, to me, where we are now is sadly disappointing to me as a trade union leader and to my workers, and we have to ensure that government learn this, whether the easy way or the hard way, and we have to continue to struggle. What is also very sadly lacking is the fact that government has not used any creative method or sought to come up with any creative method to find the money to pay the gratuity. All they've said is I don't have the money. And all they're saying, we don't have the money. The FRL, we don't have the money. Check the FRL, we don't have the money. Well, the FRL would grow, or the space would grow if you grow the economy. That's one. Two, there is section 46 and 47 of the NIS Act that you can use to establish an avenue for pension and gratuities. There is also other creative avenues you can use as levies and fees and even through small deductions or whatever creative method through the CBI that has been making a lot of monies for other countries. What percentage go towards your pensionable benefit for workers? So there is no discussion around the table as to creativity. There is no thinking outside of the box. All government has said is that we don't have, we will not pay, and we have the FRL preventing us. And that has been the nature of the conversation, and the attitude of those around the table has not changed much. There are days when we find that there is an inkling of respect and willingness to work, and there are days when the comments made would say to us that they really don't care about this process, and to hell with the working people of this country.
There he is, Lydon Lewis. There's a comment that's just been posted here on Facebook by Margaret. Margaret is asking the question, why are the unions surprised or disappointed at the state of the talks today? How could you expect a different outcome from a government that has consistently demonstrated that it is incapable of keeping its word and is lacking in honor? If you forget or disregard the lessons of the past, you are condemned to repeat. I'm afraid the unions have done just that. So says Margaret. Folks, we're winding down this particular feature. And as I promised you at the top of the program this morning, I would keep Bishop Clyde Harvey as the last presenter. Take your shoes off, put your feet up, relax, listen, and absorb what you're about to hear from the Bishop of St. George, Clyde Harvey.
Ever since I was a young seminarian, I've grown to know and love Grenada. I came here when Bishop Field was bishop. I think it was 1968, 69. And had a wonderful time between St. George's, Victoria, and Guave. Made some friends, and that has endured. And all along, as I watched Grenada go through its various crises, what has always struck me is a word which we use now, but even then it was true. The Grenadian people seem to be very resilient. They seem to be very strong in their sense of principles. They demanded a lot of people, and in turn, the character of the Grenadian, both as an individual and as a society, constantly showed itself. I remember only too well the challenges of the 1979 events, which I was a young priest at the time. And I knew some of the history of that, and some of the history of that was that in the late 70s, a lot of young Grenadians came alive, partly through the church, with a desire to do the best by Grenada and to be the best they could be in the service of Grenada. That was the time of a document from Pope Paul VI called Populorum Progressio, The new name for development is peace. The new name for peace is development. And out of that came a commitment on the part of the church, especially for countries like ours, to really ensure integral human development, which is still a principle of Catholic social teaching. That it's not simply a question of people becoming more spiritual, but the human being is about more than just the spiritual, and that we have to try to develop every aspect of who we are as humans, as individuals, and as a society. So it was that foundation, I think, that contributed to what became the Grenada Revolution. And of course, in the mix, Marxist-Leninism came up, and that had its own problems. But I've always thought to myself, and some people disagree with me, that basically the commitment was right and the insight was correct. That people in a small island state like ours dared to dream a dream for themselves, that tried to see themselves as the masters of their own destiny. And I still believe in that basic sense that we are small enough to have a truly democratic society in which we acknowledge God and we also stand for the inalienable rights of every human being in the society. So over the years, I remained in touch with Grenada. I was in Trinidad, of course, active as priest. I'm not really wanting to go anywhere else. You know, that was part of the challenge of those days. And I think I did some good things in Trinidad. But of course, the world itself was developing in ways that we in our Caribbean region could not foresee. One of the things that I keep saying is that we have missed the boat on many occasions in Trinidad, and I suspect in other Caribbean islands as well. Elections give us an opportunity to dream again. And one of the things about the democratic process is that the democratic process should allow every dream to rise to the surface, especially around election times, and for people to be given some insight into what it might mean if we go in one direction or the next. Part of the problem, and it began in Trinidad when money entered into the political process in a powerful way, was when it was not a question of who could convince the people, but who had the most money to spend. And we see that very, very real in the American system today, and we have to be careful with that. But lest I seem to be delving only into the political, I want to make this very clear, that for me, anything that I have, any sense that I've developed about Grenada is not in the first place a political sense. It is a sense of who we are as a people and who we might be if we would just give ourselves a chance to be the best we could be. And that is where I think there is a link between religion and social life, which is powerful. Religion at its best is always about the fullest development of the human being. And therefore, anybody who is trying to be religious then has an obligation to seek what is best, not in the first place for himself or herself, but for the collectivity, the common good, as we say in Catholic social teaching. And that's part of what I see myself doing here. On the day of my ordination as bishop, I said, the gift, one of the gifts I bring is the gift of the years of social teaching, which can be the foundation of a truly great society if people are trying to live it, the basic principles. So we have an opportunity, I think, in Grenada to come together and to try to build a society of which all of us can be proud. And that is not easy because you have a mass of people who may not necessarily believe the same thing, but a big, big part of it is, can we so encourage the debate and the questions that people will really see the range of possibilities, you know? It is, for me, one example of that is that I find it really weird that in a small society, which some years ago thanks to the formal education, produced some very bright minds. And now you have a situation in which we're supposed to be going forward, but somehow we're failing in basic education. Literacy and numeracy are fundamental to any authentic education that a person might have. And I always find it sad when you realize that what has happened is that people have just forgotten, you know, what it means to really take your education seriously. We have become people who are more concerned about certification than about education, you know, and that's sad. So how do we correct that? I think, well, as bishop, I have a certain measure of control. I'm still trying to discover how much over our Catholic schools and what they teach, how they teach. And that's one area that I would like to put some focus into, so that our Catholic schools become not just schools that have the best certificate results, but that people are able to see out of longitudinal studies that we also produce some of the finest human beings that Grenada could ask for. That for me is a priority. It's a challenge. And we've begun to discuss what that will mean with those who lead our Catholic schools. That's one thing. The other question, which I raised in my Christmas message, is the quality of relationships among Grenadian people. There's some things that stand out in this society when you put it over and against the supposedly more developed societies, beginning with Trinidad. And that is that in Trinidad, you see people starving by the side of the road. You see people hungry and unfed. You see people who have no connection with the land. It struck me early on in my stay in Grenada, in my coming as bishop, that no Grenadian has to starve. Every Grenadian has some connection with some piece of land. Every Grenadian has the kind of connection that enables him, if he's lacking food in the town, to go in the country and get some. There is a sense that we are a small enough society and we know each other enough to really care for each other and to reach out to each other. And that is great. That must not be lost. That's one of the values that I'm clear that we must not lose. We must never become a society in which there are people who feel that they're starving. And out of that, they feel as if they're being taken advantage of and so on. The kind of thing that happens where somebody stops a car and says, hey, you know, and you talk to the fellow on the side of the road because you know him. Rather than in some more developed societies where you're driving around with your car glass window up and you're afraid to talk to anybody. Beyond that, therefore, there is a sense that we have some fundamental relationships that we need to preserve and that we need to build on how we do that. As a priest, there's one aspect of that which I think is very, very important, and that is our relationship with God. One of the things that happens, that has happened in a lot of so-called God-fearing societies, is that people bow to God even as they lift themselves up. And that's a dangerous thing to be doing. I've been told over and over again in many of our islands, we believe in God here, we are a Christian society. But what does that mean? To what extent does our claiming to be a Christian society mean that we really are listening to the word of the Lord and we are really walking in righteousness and truth? When we look at the scriptures properly, one of the things that we find is that human beings are constantly being challenged as to their image of God. The God that they're praying to, the God that they're expecting to be part of their relationship. The Judeo-Christian scriptures are based on what we call a covenant with God. And that covenant means that God promises to be our God if we promise, and we try to promise, to be his people. Sin is when we fail in that promise, and we do that so often. But the real and one of the most difficult sins, if I might use that, put it that way, is when we presume that because we have made some kind of basic commitment, that God is always on our side, and that we can always say, God and I, God this and God that. You know. But that is not necessarily so. God puts us in all kinds of situations, and He asks us whether we can respond to that out of the fundamental commandments to love God and love our neighbor. And the biggest enemy of that is our ego. And this is where a lot of Christian religion is compromised and even in some ways subsumed, because the ego gets in the way. And one of the things that psychology is showing us very clearly is that there are forms of narcissism which by their very nature exclude God. Because you look in the mirror and you think you're seeing God when in fact you're looking at yourself. How do we deal with that is a fundamental spiritual problem. And the ego can function at all kinds of different levels. Parents behave towards their children as if they're God. Teachers behave towards their students as if they're God. And they talk as if, you don't dare question me. And some parents now have the problem of walking with their children and the children bringing home homework that they know, the parents know, this is all wrong. The correction of my child's work is all wrong. And they don't dare go to talk to the teacher about it because the teacher believes that he or she, this is one. And one of the sadder things about education today, and I see it even here in Grenada, is that some of our best students are not becoming teachers. And this is why I have been very concerned about the teaching situation here, because you have to make teaching attractive enough to attract some of your best minds and people who will make a commitment to the next generation. If you have been a teacher, if you've been a student, and a country has educated you for 18 years, let's say 13 to 18 years, from age 5, it is not then for you to just take what you got and pack up and go. Some of us have to be able to make the commitments that we will pass on what has been given to us to another generation. So I cannot urge young people leaving school enough. Teaching may not pay all that much, but it is the noblest of professions. And of course, the society has an obligation to make sure that its teachers are always respected and honored. The teachers, in fact, have then to make themselves trustworthy and honorable people. So we have that great gift that is ours of dreaming of a different way of relating, of making sure that we come to genuine humility, because that is what it's all about. A genuine humility where we do not take advantage of other people. I said in a message the other day that there are some things that are definitely the work of the evil one. And I think we have to be clear about what those things are. In the realm of human relationships, manipulation and lies, those two things we have to try and eradicate from our social intercourse. Not easy, because very few people who are manipulating will admit that they're manipulating, and parents manipulating children won't admit that. There's a big difference between teaching your child how to live and manipulating your child to be the kind of person you want your child to be, as against the kind of person your child is created to be. Two different things. That said, one of the things that has touched me in this new year is the New Year message of Pope Francis, in which he talks about good politics at the service of peace. It really is a wonderful message. Good politics at the service of peace. And he challenges the leaders of nations. He says, political office and political responsibility does constantly challenge those called to the service of their country to make every effort to protect those who live there and to create the conditions for a worthy and just future. If exercised with basic respect for the life, freedom, and dignity of persons, political life can indeed be an outstanding form of charity. That sentence alone is full of much to meditate on. But the heart of it is when he quotes a deceased Vietnamese cardinal who died in 2002, who composed what he called the Beatitudes of the Politician. And this is what he had to say. Blessed be the politician with a lofty sense and deep understanding of his role. Blessed be the politician who personally exemplifies credibility. Blessed be the politician who works for the common good and not his or her own interest. Blessed be the politician who remains consistent. Blessed be the politician who works for unity. Blessed be the politician who works to accomplish radical change. Blessed be the politician who is capable of listening. Blessed be the politician who is without fear. Powerful words. And then he goes on to say, sadly, together with its virtues, politics also has its share of vices, whether due to personal incompetence or to flaws in the system and its institutions. Clearly, these vices detract from the credibility of political life overall, as well as the authority, decisions, and actions of those engaged in it. These vices, which undermine the ideal of an authentic democracy, bring disgrace to public life and threaten social harmony. We think of corruption in its varied forms, the misappropriation of public resources, the exploitation of individuals, I use the word manipulation, the denial of rights, the flouting of community rules, dishonest gain, the justification of power by force, or the arbitrary appeal to raison d'etat, and the refusal to relinquish power. To which we can add xenophobia, racism, lack of concern for the natural environment, the plundering of natural resources for the sake of quick profit, and contempt for those forced into exile. This document is a very, very powerful reminder to us of some of the basic principles. But if I might return to a deeper space, if I might call it that, this is a nation that says it believes in God. And that is easy to say. It is much more difficult to live. I believe in God, I trust in God. But living up to what God asks of me is not always easy. In fact, when I come to those points where He is truly asking anything of me, it's hard. And so Grenada has this, it has taken on itself this great mantle of being a nation under God, ever conscious of God. And such a nation will have to ask itself serious questions, both based on the scriptures and on our human gifts of reason, as to what God asks of us today. We have to be honest enough to recognize the ways in which perhaps some of our plans are not what they ought to be. The church must understand that it cannot simply stay in the church, in the sanctuary, and leave the world to run its course. One of the challenges in any nation where Christianity is a dominant religion is how do we discern those who are genuine in their commitments to religion and Christianity and those who are simply using Christianity for their own ends. I hope and pray that as I continue to work with and to grow to love Grenadians of all kinds, of all ranks, of all shapes and sizes, that I may be able to serve the greater good, the common good of a Grenada truly just, truly righteous, but also a Grenada in which everybody is recognized as equal before God and gains whatever he needs to flourish as a human being.
Alrighty, folks, I don't know what to tell you other than something's gone wrong here. Something has gone wrong. For some reason, that address there by Bishop just dropped off the screen. I'm terribly sorry about that. However, it was just about to end anyway, so you really haven't missed anything. But I do promise you that what I'm going to do is run this for you again tomorrow morning, so you can hear it. And of course, it's going to be up on the website, the Facebook site, as well as on YouTube this afternoon, okay? And Grenada Broadcast. There are some comments that have been posted here on Facebook, and I want to share them with you just before I get to Lisa. Lydia James is referring to a comment made. Yeah, Lydia is referring to a comment made by Bishop Harvey. And she says, who would want to be a teacher in Grenada today? No one. Look at what is being done to teachers. And that's a comment made, at least in part, by the bishop. Ryan Jabon in Orlando says, agreed, Bishop. The fullest development of the human being is important. Investing in a healthy, well-fed, literate population is the most intelligent economic choice a country can make. Yes, in an agrarian society like Grenada, folks do not have to beg for food by the roadside, like in developed countries. Clive Devers here says, very good expression of Christian values. Bishop Harvey baptized our eldest daughter, Krista, in 1979 when he was a chaplain at UE. One of the many highlights of her Grenada visit was speaking directly with Bishop Harvey after 39 years, and for his blessing to her and her family last night before their return to Canada later today. Great streaming again on your informative program. Glenn Andrew Mark says, powerful message. George, you rock. Yes, George rocks. Lydia James says, very good message. Margaret Francis says, you hit the wrong button. We're not even seeing you. Yeah, Mag, something went kind of haywire here. I'm not sure. The old iPad seems to have outlived its usefulness. And Ryan says, indeed, conscious of God is not enough. Acting out the principles of God is important. Hey, Bishop Harvey. Then Ernesto says, Bishop always says the right thing. Folks, thank you very much. I knew you guys would appreciate hearing from the bishop. Now, take a look at this person. Recognize her? Yeah, recognize her? That's our friend. She is in the house. I'm talking about Lisa Taylor, the president of the Grenada Bar Association. And Lisa, thank you very much. I know you're busy today. I appreciate you responding to my call, pulling you out of your house, not just on a Sunday, but especially on the eve of you guys taking some action. Thank you so much for coming.
Interrupting my lunch preparations, no less.
So, in other words, I'm not invited to lunch?
Not in the least.
At least you're honest about it, my friend. Okay. Lisa, listen, very quickly, I'm not going to tie you up, very quickly. When you were here a couple of weeks ago, you talked about the frustration of the Bar Association, and you did mention that so far, you guys have not taken to the streets. And I found it interesting that you actually stressed the so far, which to me was an indication that, hey, you were planning on taking some action. Enough is enough, isn't it?
Yeah, when I was here last...
Just pull your microphone. Your microphone's up in the air. Just
Yes, my media experience or lack thereof is showing.
Just come a little closer to me and I'll pull it down for you.
You can sort me out. All right, there we go. Okay, good. Yeah, last. I would have been aware of a few things that I did not share. It has been in the public domain since September that the bar gave the government, I don't like the word ultimatum, but a deadline, the 31st of December, to provide us with court facilities. Again, in the context that the courts in Grenada, high courts, shut down entirely in May of last year and began functioning after a fashion on or about 22nd October. And the after a fashion, I mean, is that we are working with one criminal court and we are working with a temporary part-time civil court. And I say part-time because the civil court is in the Parliament building, and obviously whenever Parliament needs its building, the court cannot sit. That has been our reality in the current dispensation. So in the light of that deadline, when I came to you the last time, I think I already, and the bar already knew that the deadline would not be met, because we have been involved very actively in whatever the government has been trying to achieve as far as meeting our requests. So I think in anticipation of that, when the bar last met on the 4th of December, a decision was taken that, listen, we pretty much know the 31st of December will meet us in much the same conditions. And so after that deadline passes, we have to give some indication to the government that it's not business as usual in relation to this issue, that we're not prepared to simply wait the usual pace of government, which has demonstrated itself in the last few months in the following ways. The public would recall that when that demand was made by the Bar Association, that something concrete happened by the 31st of December, that at the same time there was a statement made that the government was well advanced, or plans were well advanced. I can't remember the exact wording, but the clear impression was that something of a serious nature was being undertaken by the government.
Stop for a minute, because a press release came out on Friday, and I want to quote part of that press release from government.
No problem.
Okay. The Grenada government is continuing to work assiduously to address the housing of civil and criminal courts and other matters affecting the legal fraternity. Government was made aware Friday of plans by the Grenada Bar Association to protest the state of affairs with the local courts and to call on governments to come up with an urgent plan to comprehensively address the issues. Minister of Legal Affairs, Honorable Kendra Mathurin-Stewart, has indicated that government has had discussions with the Grenada Bar Association and is taking all steps to find solutions to the existing problems. She elaborated further, saying, efforts are being made to secure a building to house the courts while government pursues a long-term solution to accommodate issues. We hope to conclude negotiations on the acquisition of a building in the next few weeks.
Right. Okay. I hear that. We don't accept it. Exhibit A. When we were told back in September that the government was, I think probably the same words may have been used, assiduously, determinedly, whatever the words used, giving the clear impression that a serious, meaningful effort was in process to acquire a building so that we would be in a position to house all the courts in one space and await the promised Hall of Justice, however long that would take. It's much the same language we heard. And what has happened? In relation to the acquisition of that building, we are told that the government of Grenada allowed itself to be outbid by a credit union. I want that to sink in. The government of Grenada allowed itself to be outbid by a credit union in relation to the acquisition of that building. Now, any reasonable person hearing that could only conclude that the government was not truly serious in its pledge to acquire that building for the stated purpose. Not even the largest credit union, I might add, and I'll say no more on that, but intelligent thinking person can read into that development and take something from it. a clear demonstration of the lack of seriousness of the government. And you know, the genesis of this is that the government has never acknowledged and accepted and articulated that we are in a crisis. When you listen to the language, when you listen to this recent press release, when you listen to every utterance coming from the government, you get the impression that this is just one of the several problems of governance that have to be contended with. But we have consistently maintained, and that's part of the solution, owning up and recognizing the degree of the problem. The press release that we submitted for the public scrutiny articulates very clearly why we use the word crisis. Because in this dispensation, the crisis has been brought to a head because we simply do not have court facilities. And we can use the time frame of May to now, but we can go beyond that. We can consider that we are in the 15th year since the courthouse was destroyed. Yes? And I want us to consider that and really question whether assiduous efforts are truly being made. In the current dispensation, and I make no apology for saying this, the Grenada Bar Association has practically had to hold the hand of government in the efforts that have been made so far. And I want to make it categorically clear. It is the role of the government, it is the job and responsibility of the government, not the Grenada Bar, to provide a court for the state of Grenada. We will support any effort, we will cooperate. Our cooperation has been lauded as far as Parliament, and that is fine. What are we getting for our cooperation? What we are getting is that from May to January, we're still hearing press releases from the government talking about efforts and assiduous efforts and the rest. And how do you measure whether those efforts are really true and genuine? I've given you Exhibit A. Exhibit B. I sat and I listened as the rest of Grenada would have listened. And I want to make it clear, the Minister of Legal Affairs is my professional colleague, friend, and in fact, neighbor. Her former chambers are right next door to mine. So this is nothing personal. But I have to state the facts. I listened to the budget presentation from our Minister of Legal Affairs. I actually came into it late. And I sat and I listened, and I was very happy for all the wonderful things that were happening for the people of Carriacou, because that's what I heard. And at a point in time, I heard a warning bell. And from my experience, in the context of budget or other presentations in Parliament, when you receive a warning bell from the Speaker, it is an indication that you are very near the end of your address. So, whereas I thought perhaps I may have missed the pronouncements relative to the Ministry of Legal Affairs and the judicial system in Grenada, what I heard was that when that warning bell was sounded, the Minister announced that she would turn now to speak about her ministry, which confounded me. So I sat and I listened, and I heard some talk about the excellent legislative progress and agenda that had been met, all well and good. And in the dying stages of that address, I heard talk about the efforts that were being made. It was the first time I heard, I don't know if I missed it earlier, an acknowledgement that we had a problem in Grenada. And this was a presentation, I believe, in December. A problem that had reached a crisis situation since May of that year. And what were we told? Efforts are being made. The bar is cooperating, which is true, and we will continue to cooperate. I've made it very clear. We'll continue to do anything meaningful. We'll continue to talk. I will unhappily have to continue going to meetings and all the rest. But in the light of those two exhibits, we have good cause to question the seriousness of the government as far as addressing that we have a critical... I make the point again. We cannot continue to trumpet development in Grenada while the judicial arm of government is literally lying on the ground. I don't care by what measure we are growing and developing. I don't care what the economic data will tell us. But when your judicial arm is lying on the ground, and this has been a steady march of years, to the point where we do not have adequate court facilities in Grenada, we cannot speak about development. And this is something that is affecting everybody. So when you see lawyers out there tomorrow, the lawyers are not out there for themselves. Yes, this is our livelihood. We need to have courts to be able to ply our trade, as it were. But why are we in those courts? Because we are advancing the causes of our clients. the men, women, and children of Grenada. So when we begin to accept as normal that you file a claim and it must take you 3, 5, and 7 years, something has gone terribly wrong. These are issues that are affecting people in their daily lives, right? People in the sense of individuals and people in the sense of companies and businesses who also have issues before the courts that they want to conclude. Yes? So I want people to be clear that when we stand up together, and I say here to all the lawyers, I think I speak the obvious, this is an issue that cuts across any particular divide there may be. This is an issue that affects every single lawyer in Grenada, both at the private bar and at the public bar. In the case of the public bar, recall that when we were functioning with 2 criminal courts, you were still hearing in the public domain statements made about the state of our assizes and the backlog. Now think about that. 2 criminal courts operating full-time, and you still hear from time to time either the DPP or somebody from the prosecutorial department lamenting the fact that we were trying to reduce a tremendous backlog in the criminal assizes. What do you think is happening now that we have 1 court? Imagine that. What do you think is happening now that for the last several months we have been functioning with 1 criminal court? Where do you think that backlog would stand? Right? So my clear message to the lawyers of Grenada, who are well aware that this is an issue that affects all of us, is that the time has come where we don't sit in our offices any longer and call the president of the bar and complain. I can tell you categorically, George, practically since I've taken on this position, every day I have to hear complaints relating to this issue and others from lawyers. The time has come to stand up. The time has come to send a clear message. Regardless of what we believe in our private pursuits, this cuts across the spectrum. And we must stand together and send a clear signal that while we will continue to cooperate, we want to insist that something other than the usual pace of government, which is what we've been seeing on this issue, must be brought to bear. That this thing there must be a reckoning. Yes? We must accept that we are in a crisis situation. And when you have a crisis, you can't approach the solution to a crisis in the way that you would any ordinary problem. Yes? So what the bar wants to do is to signal that the deadline, because this is a catalyst for this particular action, we gave you a deadline. The deadline has passed. We can't just sit back and continue to wait and fold our arms. That has brought us nothing meaningful. We will stand together and send a signal. And in doing so, I can assure you, this is a message that resonates throughout the Caribbean. It doesn't give me any comfort that this may be a problem that is repeated to some degree in other Caribbean islands. It resonates because I think, not just in Grenada, but as a Caribbean region, we have to come to terms with the significance of the judicial arm of government, of the judiciary, and that when we neglect it, there are dire consequences for our societies. And we cannot continue to treat this issue as business as usual, which is why the Bar Association has to react in a way that we are doing. And this is the beginning. We are considering all options, including legal options, to force this issue to be dealt with in a serious, meaningful, timely way.
Tell me about the actions you're going to be taking tomorrow.
Tomorrow, it's effectively a gathering of the lawyers. We are not, and I want to make this clear, this is not an event of bacchanalia.
You're not marching from Queen's Park to Dancing.
This is not an event of bacchanalia. We are a bar association. We simply want to say to the government, look at us here. We stand together, united on this common issue and concern, and we say to you with a united voice, we want you to do your jobs and do it with a sense of urgency and seriousness. So we will gather together in the most appropriate place. On the last occasion when perhaps, if you're old enough, you might remember the bar having to take a step of this nature, we stopped going to court. That was our way to signal our indignation about the issue of that time. We stopped going to court for a time. We can't even do that in this instance. Which court are we going to walk out of? Parliament is not, we're taking a crutch, as the people say in Parliament. It's not our court. Yes? We are going to be in the environs of the registry. And in those environs, if anybody chooses to come with a camera, you can sweep your camera over to York House, which is the genesis of this problem in its current dispensation, 2004. And you can look to see what that means for the statements you hear from government. And then you can swing your camera across to the registry, and you can walk upstairs, and you, if you dare, and you can see illustrated some of the things we have been saying. And you can swing your cameras across and look at the building where the prosecutorial department still has to do its job, which is also in need of some urgent attention. So these are not things that we're not being, I've been at pains to say, this is not about lawyers being fastidious or difficult. When Ivan came in 2004, we rolled up our sleeves, all of us. We soldiered through. We attended courts in buildings that were causing problems for people's health. We went back to our court building that we knew had mold and recently has been certified scientifically, confirming what we always feared. We went to the building they sent us to at Rowley House when we could no longer attend there, even though the steps were challenging for some of our clients and people were suffering adverse effects because of mold. We went to the building down at the Carenage. In other words, we have soldiered through. We have done our part. We have kept our part of the bargain. We have done what we... But there comes a time when there's a term I like to use. We can no longer continue to institutionalize, to be complicit in institutionalizing mediocrity. That is what has been happening. We accept as normal the most mediocre conditions and standards for an arm of government that is as important as the executive and the legislature. And we can't continue to do that. And so that is as much as I can tell you about the context of this protest tomorrow. As I say, there'll be no carnival marches and there'll be no placards, but we simply are taking a stand together as a bar and letting the message go out that we are not prepared to simply cross our arms and wait and wait and continue to wait while our livelihoods are affected, while our clients' business not being served, and while the public of Grenada continues to suffer through this crisis. Something more has to be done.
I don't want to take up much more of your time, but just let me ask you this. Tomorrow, obviously, a lot of people are going to be impacted, people who need to have cases heard.
Well, as it happens, no High Court matters are going to be affected because our temporary High Court is not sitting tomorrow. And nothing will affect the criminal High Court as well. That court is not sitting. We have solicited the understanding of the magistrates so that if any lawyers choose to support the march, who would ordinarily have to attend magistrates' course, obviously we can't tell the magistrates what to do, but we at least gave them notice that this was in the offing. We asked for their understanding because this cause is about the magistrates' courts as well. It is part of the decay and the rot that we're talking about. When we speak about these issues, we're speaking about it in the broadest sense. Yeah? So we are hoping that the magistrates will be understanding, and in the case of late attendance of some of the lawyers, that they will appreciate that is in the context of this event happening.
To avoid you folks going to the next step, what do you want to see happen after tomorrow?
What we have been urging is a broad-based approach. It would be helpful if, just as a matter of articulating the issue, if we could hear words from the government other than what you read, assiduous efforts. We want to hear, we accept that in the broad historical context and in the current historical context, in the current context, we do have a crisis. And lay out a plan and give us something concrete. Tell us who all are involved. Tell us what concretely the steps are going to be taken to move us from point A to point B. Bring on board all the resources necessary. Because ultimately, you know, this is going to come down, we accept, to money and prioritization. Money will have to be spent in the same way that had the government been serious enough in addressing this issue, that money could have been spent to make sure we should have been in the RPTT building doing the business of our clients and the public as I speak now. So this is what I say when I say it comes down to money. If things had gone according to plan, the building would have been acquired. Arrangements would have been made for some measure of parking in nearby facilities. The Ministry of Works or whomever should have been in there, outfitting the building. January 2019 should have found us ready to work and start reducing the tremendous backlog that we know the situation is engendering. Yeah? So we want to hear a plan, and it needs to be something a little more concrete than we're working.
Well, I was just going to ask you this, because you guys have been made, the reason why you're sitting here is out of frustration, which has been caused by the fact that you guys have been made a lot of promises over a period of time.
Yeah.
So if you get another promise tomorrow, so what?
I think it will take a little bit more than just, certainly we take absolutely no comfort from the words you have read in that press release. We've heard it before.
Exactly.
It's going to take something significantly more than that, right? To satisfy us that at long last there has been a reckoning, and the reckoning must be demonstrated in concrete actions, including because this is a systemic failure that has happened. This is not just to give us a building to go and function in a court setting. We have now to address every element which we've laid out in the statement we've issued. So we want to see concretely what the plans are to treat with all the elements of the absolute breakdown of our judicial system. It will take nothing less than that. Yeah? And then we want to see the actions that follow.
Okay.
Right? We want to see the actions that follow. All right?
But again, essentially you're reaching out.
It's more than a reaching out. We're taking a stand. We're saying to you, we're not going to accept the words and the business as usual. We need something more than that. And when we get something that we think is an indication of something meaningful and real and genuine, we will say so.
Okay.
And we'll continue to work in that joint pursuit to that objective. But if the response to this is yet another series of meetings and press statements and we're not seeing concretely, then we will continue to do what we think is necessary to bring this thing to a head.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem, George.
And we'll be monitoring you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Lisa Taylor, who's the president of the Grenada Bar Association. And tomorrow, they begin protest action down at the registry. And we'll keep you posted on that. Pilgrims, we've gone over time. And I do thank Lisa for spending the last few minutes with us. Let me take a little break here and we'll come back, wrap it up. Alrighty, folks, that's going to do it for today's edition of Sundays with George Grant. Thank you so much, and thank you very much to all of my guests who were all very well received this morning. Do appreciate that. As always, parting word from the Holy Scriptures. This one comes to you from the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 43, verses 18 and 19. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Check it out yourself. Isaiah 43, 18, 19. My dear friends, that's going to do it for Georgie Porgy on this Sunday, the 6th day of January 2019. Invitation to join me tomorrow morning, and you know, some of the stuff you heard today, I definitely have to rerun tomorrow morning for those who may have missed it. George Grant sending God's blessings your way. And I'll tell you what, by His grace, we'll see you tomorrow. So long.